Hey everybody, it's Brooks here, First Baptist Church of the Islands. Thank you for joining me for today's 5 for 5. So what does your neighborhood look like? What does your part of your community look like? So I'm walking down an average, ordinary street here on Wilmington Island, about 5 minutes from our church. And maybe your neighborhood looks a little something like this. You got neighbors on each side of you or behind you or across the street from you. Maybe you live in an apartment complex and you've got neighbors above you or below you. But what does your community look like? And then my other question for you is, how much of a burden do you have for your community? You know, in the book of Nehemiah, Nehemiah was an ordinary person. He worked for the government. He wasn't a pastor. He wasn't a missionary. He worked for the government in a government position. And he heard news that his homeland, the city of Jerusalem, was in shambles. He heard that the city had been destroyed, the gates were burned down. And once he heard that news, the Bible says in Nehemiah 1 that he wept. Nehemiah had a burden for his city, and he would eventually go back to that city, and he would play a pivotal role in rebuilding that city and restoring it, not just physically, but spiritually. He was a person who filled the void in his community, so to speak. And I wonder, in your community, have you ever thought about the needs of people that are right close to you on your own street, in your own part of your community? What are some of their physical needs? What are some of their emotional needs? Or do you have any neighbors maybe who are lonely? Do you have any neighbors who are struggling? Do you have any neighbors that have spiritual needs? Right? They need somebody just to listen or just to love them for who they are. Well, how can you fill that role? And do you have a burden for them? Have you ever prayed, Lord, give me a burden for my community, for my neighbors, so that I could be used by you to make a difference for the sake of the gospel? You know, my encouragement to you is today, you may be at work, you may be driving while you're watching this, but take a moment today and just think through, what does my community look like? What are some of the needs in the community where I live? And how might God use me to help meet those needs and to help put Christ on display? And even beyond that, how can I begin to pray for those needs and pray that God would intervene, even perhaps through my life? Hey, I hope you'd take a moment to do that today. And then I hope you're willing to make yourself a part of the solution to meet the needs, the biggest need of all, of sharing and showing Jesus to those who are closest to you. Have a great day today.